Hello and welcome. How are you guys doing? I wanted to check in here and see, how you guys are feeling. I know a lot of people are feeling a lot of things happening with sicknesses. I definitely am. And I also wanted to see, just check in about the new moon that's coming up on, it's going to be early. It's going to be early in the morning on Saturday morning. So that will be 3:42 exact, I think. Always when I say exact or like exact numbers, I'm always like, I shouldn't do that. So we're talking about the new moon. We're talking about Scorpio. We're talking about the scorpion's tail. Damn, that's some fierce medicine in there, right? Like so fierce it can do you in. So we're talking about that because, so Saturday morning, that new moon's gonna come. This is the most transformative, the deepest, the darkest, the most fertile time to set intention around your own rebirth, your own growth, your own transformation, your own changes in your life. This is the most potent time to set those intentions. So do not miss this opportunity. And really it's wise if you have your chart or you know your chart. I've talked a lot this Scorpio season. I have been on here a lot. And so, because it's intense. And so likely you've heard me talk about your chart. You likely, possibly if you're tuning in, know where Scorpio falls in your chart. If you do, look at 26 degrees. And the way you're going to be able to tell that, there's little marks and little numbers. If there's a planet that falls there, for someone like me, I have Uranus, which, our generation has Uranus in Scorpio, if you were born close to when I was born. And mine is exact on this new moon. So, look to see if any planets are there, look to see what house it's in, and look to see the relationship with other planets, right? So, it's a great time to get a reading. It's just a great time to get a reading. I think that's just a given during Scorpio season. During Sagittarius season, that's a great time to get a reading too, but it's almost more helpful to get one before we get to that point. Where we're at collectively is literally like going underground, going underneath our conscious mind, deep into the depths and pulling out, and it's really helpful to have people to process this out with, pulling out gems, pulling out things that can be alchemized, things that can be transformed and transcended into something new, looking to our old stories, our old ways of being, and really reanalyzing and rebirthing new stories for ourselves. So that's why it's a really helpful time to get a reading, because once we get to Sagittarius season, it's taking whatever we've brought up, like that's gotten unearthed during this time. When we get to Sagittarius season, we take that, and that's what we form the arrow, and we're shooting off. And so, of course, it's great to get help then, but I think even more helpful is now reaching out to your healers, reaching out to your friends that have healing energy that you can reciprocate and share information with. So the new moon, again, early Saturday morning. It's going to be in 26 degrees of Scorpio. So again, looking at those things. And the other things that are happening this week, we have Venus and Jupiter are conjunct. Venus, the planet of love and heart-centeredness, is conjunct Jupiter, which is abundance and opening and expanding and luck and I wouldn't say necessarily wellness, but that came to mind. So, I guess it's just kind of luck, and so that can be around wellness. So when Venus and Jupiter are hanging out together in Scorpio, Jupiter, as we know, is going to be here for a while. Venus, not as long. And so we really want to take that energy of Venus in Scorpio, which is bringing light and energy to these harder issues, these issues of working in relationship and getting to these deeper kind of subconscious levels in relationship. Venus is about giving and receiving energy, and that can also be money. And so when Jupiter's expanding on those topics and expanding on those areas in your life, you probably notice some relationship issues coming up. And it's not just romantic. This is, obviously you want to look to what house this is happening for you in, and it can be a different house that the new moon is happening in. So, you can have, depending on what type of astrology you pay attention to, unless you're doing whole sign, you likely will have this happening in 2 different areas, because it's a little bit further back, and then it's slowly starting to even out with the moon starting to move in. The moon is in, right now the moon is in Libra, and so this is a good time to get centered before the new moon, because once the moon gets into Scorpio, believe it or not, it's going to be a little bit more intense than it is now. So these few days, today and tomorrow, are a really, really, really great time for you to find inner balance, figure out what's coming up. I mean, I always talk about writing, but I think it's just such a valuable tool for processing out what's coming up for you. I process through talking, so I know that talking to trusted people is going to help me get into the flow of like that subconscious level of what's really kind of coming up at the heart. What are the main lessons? What part of the hero's journey am I on? Because we're all on this hero's journey. And when I have my blog post up. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can go to my website and check it out. But I was just talking about the scorpion's tail, because this is where the new moon's happening. It's at the kind of the tail end of Scorpio, which is the tail is where the poison is held. And so what is that poison, right? And if we're not looking at it as a negative, we're looking at it as stored energy, stored potency. And there is meaning to our journey. There is meaning to our life. It's not punishment. It's not supposed to be about suffering. It is about the hero's journey and really coming to a place where you can own your story, where you can own your tail. So I was talking about how the scorpion's tail is kind of like our tail. It's our story, and we don't want to get stuck in our story, but we also don't want to forget that it's purposeful, that there are archetypes, and that we all have Scorpio energy within us. And typically for a lot of people, they want to disown that part of themselves. They want to, especially if you don't have a lot of Scorpio energy. I know a lot of astrologers talk poorly about Scorpio time, about scorpions, about Scorpios. And it's really a disservice, because we all have this archetype within us. And the more that we want to disown those parts of ourselves and those parts of our story, the bigger they get. I think it was Carl Jung that said, that which we resist persists. And really understanding that when we own our story, we don't get stuck in it. We're just like, oh yeah, that's a part of my journey. I'm not stuck there, but that was a part of what made me who I am today, right? And I was talking about in my blog about darkness and about we don't necessarily need light when we're out in the sun. When it's bright and shiny, we don't necessarily need to light a candle. We don't necessarily need our own inner light to shine. It's only when we're in the darkness that we really need light. We need to see. And so we can't really know the value of light if we don't know darkness. And darkness is not negative. And so it's really valuable to value this darker time of the year, the darker parts in our consciousness, because they are where the growth happens. When we can bring them up, bring our own inner light to those areas, that is where the healing happens. And that is where we can not have to depend on the light of the sun. We can not have to depend on other people to be our light for us. We just have it within ourselves. And we're going to shine that much more brighter when we're willing to look at those parts of ourselves. It doesn't mean that those parts have to go away. It doesn't mean that those parts have to own our life either. So I just really think that we need to start valuing Scorpio time. And it is a feminine sign. It's a water sign, it's a feminine sign, it's a fixed sign, it is stubborn, and it's not going anywhere. And so the more that you're willing to flow with it, the more you're willing to get into the watery ebbs of it and let your emotions come out, let your journey happen, the easier time you're gonna have. So it is fixed, it is water, and it is, it's just a deep time. And this is what I was going to say. And so that's the new moon. So we are in Scorpio, and then quickly we're going to shift into Sagittarius sun time. And the full moon will be in Gemini, which is a mutable sign. So if you're feeling kind of sick of all the fixed energy, as I am, and I am a lot of fixed energy in my chart, what you can know is that it is moving. It is moving, right? It's just, this is the last little stubborn. We need to be stubborn. We need to be stubborn with this new moon, because it is from this point that the springboard comes for Sagittarius time and the Gemini full moon, because Gemini and Sagittarius are both mutable, which means that they change and they move, and they can be one thing one day and the next day they're a different thing. So we take this energy at the new moon of being more rigid, of being more determined to figure out what's going on for us and where we want to set intention, and looking to what house this is happening for us, so that we can have a springboard to jump from, so that we can have grounding to make sure that those intentions happen. So this is a very powerful new moon. Very, very powerful new moon. Do not waste it. I would say take some time Wednesday, Thursday, to really work with the energies and set intention. So so that's happening. So I talked about Venus and Jupiter, and they're both in Scorpio as well. And definitely looking to where that house is. Making sure you set intention out of abundance mindset and not out of fear mindset. This is really, really important. A lot of people, myself included, sometimes don't even know that we're in the fear mindset. Don't even know that, I'm setting this intention because I feel like it's missing. Well, instead, notice where you feel abundant and where you feel like you're doing well, and build from there. Bring your intention into the future with that, if that makes sense. Okay? I have a great maybe I'll try to post it on here. I have a great little audio meditation. I don't do a good job at stopping, so you have to pause it as you work through the new moon intention setting, but I have one on SoundCloud that I will try to post a link to around setting intention for the new moon. Very powerful time to set intention. Okay, and then Saturn is going to be ending its journey through Sagittarius, 2.5-year cycle, and it's going to be happening in December. So this last little bit is a really kick in the booty right now that we're getting from Saturn and Sagittarius. And what's happening is it's trining Uranus, trining Uranus. So sorry. Trining Uranus. And what that means, right, is that it's getting this last little bit of big change it's like the fire under our butt. Sagittarius is fire. It's mutable. It's moving us forward in terms of getting to that higher place, not getting stuck in the lower mind, not getting stuck in the way we thought we were, the way that we thought things worked. This is about seeing our higher vision and being open to a new vision for ourselves. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard people talk about knowing, many of us, I'm sure myself included, have talked we know where we're going. We know it all. We know everything in our journey, and we know where we're going, and we just need to get it together. We just need to get it together and keep walking that same path, and do not go off the path, and just keep going, and it's going to all work out. And that's not how life is. Life is not logical. Life is not linear, right? And so the more that we're opening, Saturn and Sagittarius, we're opening to this higher vision. We're surrendering to what we thought we knew best. And we're really opening to this new vision. And that's really vital as Saturn's going to move into Capricorn, because Capricorn is more of a starter. So we're in this cycle. It's the mutable energy. So it's kind of flowing and ebbing and being open to our new path. And then once we get into Capricorn, that's really where we can, again, have that firm grounding to do the harder work of making it happen. So this is a really important time to set time to dream, set time to integrate, set time to be in that dreamy place. And I know I keep talking about this in particular this month, but because it's the most important time to do this. It is without a doubt the most important time to do this, because what's going to happen as we move into December, as you guys know, is that things are going to get busy and things are going to get really holiday focused, and you know, interacting with others and holiday parties and just different things that naturally happen. So this is the time to be okay with taking space. And so you can definitely count on doing that if that's something that works for you. And then finally, the last aspect that I wanted to talk about this week is Mars, and with this new moon in particular, it's going to be almost exact at the new moon, is Mars in Libra. So Mars is moving forward. Libra is moving forward, making sure nobody's toes are getting stepped on, moving forward, making sure that everything's balanced and just, and that's good right now because we need this energy right now. But it's squaring Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto's been in Capricorn for a really long time, okay? But when Mars is here, and Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio, Pluto is the newer, or like the more modern ruler of Scorpio. So both of these heavenly bodies or planets are squaring at the new moon where all this energy is in Scorpio. So if you think you've seen a lot of Scorpio energy, just wait until we move into the last bit of this week. And there is some stuff happening globally. There is some stuff happening in our culture specifically that is going to get unearthed. That is, without a doubt, there's going to be things that come up this week that are going to be uncomfortable. And so this is just unearthing deep inner drives that we maybe have kept even hidden from our own consciousness. And specifically, I see it around our work in the world, working with others, working in business with people, but also like in the communities that we're in. So making sure that we set, intention around just being clear with our communication, being clear with our own intention before we go out and interact with others this week. And I would love to hear any questions you guys have. This is just a great time. I talked about my last thing. I'm just going to remind you again, this is a great time to do a vision board. This is a great time to do some art. This is a great time to do some collaging. This is a great time to, again, process work, healing work. Get at it. Get at it. It's going to be a good time for healing this week. I will be responding to any questions you guys have about the Scorpio new moon time. I am in Portland this week. I'll be there tomorrow and Thursday if you wanted to see me at Luna in Northeast Portland. Otherwise, I'm doing distance work. And let's see. I just want to make sure I got everything. Yeah. So enjoy this week. And it is, okay, this is the last thing I want to say. Creativity. Creativity does not come out of nowhere, right? Creativity comes from thinking outside the box. If we just check off all of our boxes, then we are not living a creative life. And we can't really live a creative life unless we're willing to be kind of weird and be kind of in our own space. And so this is the creativity that's coming up this week sometimes comes from the place where we feel like we have the biggest wound. So I just want to remind you of that. If you're feeling at all called to create this week, next week possibly more, you might feel the inspiration or the seeds of that come through this week, and then next week you might be feeling more like creating. But I just think it's really important to look at like just transcending these traditional ideas. I just posted on my personal page about this great article that I read about decolonizing our mind. And I think it's really important to remember that we all carry to some degree this idea of what is right or what is culturally appropriate. And so remembering that the only way to get to creativity is to kind of dump all that bullshit and to find our own way of being in the world and become more of a free spirit. And so if you're struggling at all in your creativity, this is a great week to look at the wounding around that, and because that is ultimately where you're going to create from. That's the last thing I want to say. Have a great day, guys. Bye.